Let me ask you something, brother. Are you dating for purpose or are you dating to heal something? Most men won't admit, but they're dating from their wounds. They chase women because of the validation they didn't get from their father growing up. They cling to women because they never felt safe with their mother when they were little. They overperform in relationships because they're terrified of being abandoned. That's why so many men end up in relationships where they're exhausted, unseen, and really unappreciated. Because you can't date from your wounds and expect to build something real. Hey man, I'm Kyle. I'm a certified master NLP practitioner and a certified master success coach for men who are tired of dating, and the whole dating scene really, and they're ready to start leading their life from grounded masculinity. And just for you watching this, I have put free resources in the description below for you to get for yourself and to start making the change, as well as the opportunity to work with me. And when would now be a good time to do that? Leave a comment also. Let's get a conversation started for our brothers, a real conversation. So, today I want to talk about the difference between dating from your wounds and dating from your identity. And I promise you that this truth will change everything for you if you're willing to listen. So, when you date from your wounds, here's what happens, right? If you grew up never hearing your dad say, I'm proud of you, you'll spend your whole adult life chasing women. You're hoping that they'll finally give you the approval that you never got at home. Every compliment she gives you feels like oxygen. And every time she's quiet, you panic. But here's the problem, brother. No woman can heal the father wound. It's not her job to replace what your dad never gave you. So you end up needing her to constantly reassure you. And over time, the weight of that, neediness crushes the attraction. She stops respecting you because she doesn't feel like she's with a man. She feels like she's raising a boy. I did a whole video on the father wound and how to overcome it. You can check it out right here. So, if your mother was unpredictable, chaotic, or emotionally unavailable, you carry that blueprint into your adulthood. And without even realizing it, you find yourself drawn to women who feel the same way. Why? Because your nervous system isn't looking for healthy, it's looking for what's familiar. Familiar feels safe, even if it's painful. So you end up repeating the same cycles in drama, the emotional roller coasters, thinking that this is just what relationships are supposed to be. You start confusing, like intensity with intimacy. And brother, intensity is not intimacy. It's just chaos dressed up as chemistry. If you were abandoned in the past, whether it was, by family or by a lover or even friends that, that you trusted, that fear of being left really sticks with you. So you cling, you overtext, you over check in, you overgive, and you tell yourself it's because, you're devoted, but deep down, you know, you know the truth, right? You're terrified that she's going to leave. And really here's the painful paradox when it comes to that. The tighter you cling and grab, the faster she's going to run. Your fear of abandonment comes from the very thing that pushes her away. This is what it looks like, right? When a man dates from his wounds. He's not choosing his women, his wounds are. He's not he's not leading, he's really grasping, right? And really here's the harsh truth with it all. When you date from your wounds, you attract partners who they reflect those wounds back to you, right? They're a mirror. That's why you keep ending up in the same kind of relationships. The names change, the faces change, but the story never does. Different face, same story. And brother, it costs you more than you realize. It costs you your energy, because you're always performing, proving, and managing. You wake up already drained because your entire nervous system is running on survival mode. You're not resting in relationships. You're auditioning for it. And the worst part is no matter how much you perform, it never feels like it's enough. It costs you your clarity also because instead of, leading that relationship, you're constantly trying to manage it. So, you know, so are you focused on getting love, attention or validation? That you stop really asking that real question, do I even want this relationship? Does this woman fit the version of my life? You cannot see clearly when all you're doing is fighting to keep from being abandoned. And the last one, it costs you your masculine presence because instead of being, grounded and steady, you show up needy and unstable. And women can feel that like instantly, brother. Don't fool yourself. They feel it. They may not always call it out, but they feel it in their body. They feel that pressure. They feel the cling. They feel that hidden expectation that you need them to complete you. And nothing dries up attraction faster than a man who needs to be carried instead of a man who knows how to carry himself. And really, here's the saddest, it's really sad. This is the saddest part of the whole thing, right? Dating from your wounds never gives you what you're really after. You don't get peace. You get anxiety because you're constantly scanning for the next threat. You don't get respect. You get, pity or tolerance at best because she sees you as dependent instead of being dependable. You don't get intimacy, you get intensity. That high of the chase and then the low of that withdrawal. That constant cycle of drama that tricks you into thinking, this is passion when really it's just pain being recycled. And that cycle, it will drain you until you start, doubting yourself as a man. Eventually, you begin to believe that lie that, maybe I'm just not cut out for this, right? Maybe relationships aren't for me. You convince yourself that, that you're broken, that there's something wrong with you, that love isn't meant for you, you know? That peace and respect are for, for other men, but not for you. That's really the lie that you tell yourself, but that's not the truth. The truth is that you've just been living from your wounds instead of your identity. You've been outsourcing your worth to women instead of embodying it yourself. And until you make that shift, right? Until you make that internal shift, no relationship will feel safe and fulfilling. So, I've had some people ask me, what does it mean to date from identity, right? So it's pretty simple, right? It means you stop chasing relationships to fix you and you start building relationships that reflect you. You're no longer looking for a woman to heal the broken boy inside of you. You're standing as a man who has already chosen who he is, and you invite her into that, right? Dating from identity means you know your direction, you know your standards, you know your non-negotiables. You're not afraid to lose someone who doesn't align with you because you understand something that most men never do. And that's losing the wrong woman. It's not a loss. That's a gain, brother. Instead of needing her validation, you validate yourself. Your worth is no longer on the auction block being, sold to the highest bidder. You don't, measure your value by how much attention she gives you or how quickly she replies to your texts. You measure it by how faithfully you live in your values. That's strength. That's that stability. Instead of repeating the chaos of your childhood, you create stability because you've learned how to regulate your nervous system. So when conflict arises, you don't shut down like your father or spiral out of control like your mother. You stay present. You breathe. You listen. You respond with clarity instead of reacting from fear. And that presence, that's what creates trust. Instead of of clinging out of fear, you hold space with strength. You know that whether she stays or goes, your foundation doesn't collapse because your foundation is not her approval, right? It's your identity. And that strength is really magnetic. A woman can feel that in, the way you stand, the way you speak, the way that you hold yourself. It says, I am a man who knows who he is. I choose you, but I do not need you. That's dating from identity. That's leadership. That's that masculine presence. And brother, here's the beauty of it, right? When you date from identity, you stop attracting relationships that drain you and you start attracting relationships that elevate you, right? Because you are no longer broadcasting insecurity. You're broadcasting clarity. You're no longer searching for someone to, fill that gap within you. You're offering an overflow. And that shift, it changes everything. Now, let me be clear, okay? So I know there's probably some people that are like, where do I get this? Where do I get this, this identity, this clarity, right? Okay, so it's it's not something that you just stumble upon like one day, right? You don't wake up and magically feel like a man who knows who he is. Identity is something that you build brick by brick, right? Decision by decision, standard by standard. You build it by setting boundaries, first with yourself, right? Then with others. With yourself, it looks like discipline. You decide what you will and will not tolerate from your own behavior. You set, a line. You draw a line between the man you used to be and the man you are becoming. With others, it could look like, clarity. You're no longer afraid to say no when something violates your values. And the moment that you enforce that boundary, right? You send a message to yourself. That message is, I respect me. I protect me. You build it by defining your values and then living by them. Most men never stop to ask, what do I actually stand for? They borrow their values from culture, from their parents, from their peers, from coworkers, and then wonder why, their life feels hollow. But when you sit down and you define your true values, like what really matters to you, and you begin to actually embody them daily, you create that alignment, right? It's what gives you certainty in the midst of all the chaos, right? You build it by regulating your emotions so you're not ruled by fear, guilt, or shame, Identity, it's not just something that's like intellectual, right? It has to be embodied. It shows up in the way that you breathe when conflict rises, the way that you speak when you're challenged, the way that you move when life really puts the pressure on you. And a man who cannot regulate, is a man who can't lead. I mean, that's plain and simple. And leadership, brother, that really starts with your own nervous system, right? You build it by surrounding yourself with men who call you to, to a higher standard instead of pulling you down. Because identity is forged in environments. And if you're around men who gossip, complain, and stay stuck themselves, you will unconsciously shrink to fit them, right? But if you're around men who will, challenge you, call you out on your excuses, and who really remind you of your strength, your identity strengthens, right? Steel sharpens steel. I think we can all agree with that. And here's the reality, right? When you build identity, your relationships change instantly, right? You no longer chase, you no longer, are auditioning, right? You no longer settle because you're no longer negotiating with who you are. And brother, women can feel that, right? She can feel when a man knows who he is. She feels it in the steadiness of his presence, in the clarity of his words, in the, the consistency of his actions. She can feel when he's leading from identity instead of insecurity. And when she feels that, She doesn't not just love you, but she respects you. She trusts you. And she'll soften around you because finally she finally feels safe, right? And brother, that's what you've been craving all along. Not just, love or sex, nothing like that. I mean, you do crave that. We all do as men. But really that trust, that respect and intimacy. And honestly, if you really want to look at it, we as men, we really crave peace, right? We are outside all day battling against the entire world. The last thing we want to do is come home and have another battle, right? No man wants to do that. But you have to create the container for her to not give you that when you get home, right? And and really doing that, those don't come from dating out of your wounds. They come from your identity. So, brother, here's the choice that's in front of you right now, right? You can keep dating from your wounds. You can keep chasing validation, hoping the next woman finally, fills that void inside of you. You can keep playing out the same cycles of proving, pleasing and clinging until you're bitter, burned out, and convinced that love just isn't for you. Or I'm going to offer you something different. You can stop. You can just stop. You can put down that old story. You can rebuild. You can step into that identity because the man you want to be in your relationships, respected, trusted, admired, loved, he's not some like fantasy version of you. He's already inside of you. He's just buried under those wounds that were never yours to carry in the first place. But here's the truth that most men, they just don't want to hear. You will never get there by accident. You will not just, stumble one day into identity while scrolling Instagram reels at midnight. You will not heal your wounds by pretending they don't exist or by distracting yourself with, work, alcohol, porn, or, like just a casual fling. You get there by doing the work, by facing yourself in the mirror without running, by, burning down the old patterns that have kept you, stuck and small, by choosing to rebuild from a place of truth, not from fear. That's really, that is the fire, that is the fire that every man must walk through if he wants to emerge as somebody that's unshakable. And when you do that, man, I'm telling you, brother, everything shifts. Your relationships stop being battles where you're fighting to be seen. They become alliances where both of you rise together, right? And isn't that what we want? We both want to rise, at the same time, right? When you start dating from identity, you stop draining yourself with drama. Your relationships, they start fueling you with connection. They stop testing your worth. They start reflecting it back to you because, again, your partner is just a mirror, right? They reflect back to you what's inside of you because you're not leading from your wounds anymore, right? You're leading from identity. And that is when love becomes what it was meant to be. Not a performance, not a prison, but a partnership. It stops being a test that you have to pass, but a legacy that you get to build, right? So, I'm sorry, I got like my mustache is tickling my nose today. I don't know what's going on with it. But anyways, so let me ask you this, brother. Are you going to keep dating from your wounds, or are you ready to start leading from identity? You know, are you ready to start leading from identity? Sorry about that. I had a little bit of a burp. Because this isn't just about relationships. This is about your life. One path leads to chaos, resentment, and collapse, right? You'll keep repeating the same cycles, giving your energy away, questioning your worth, and then waking up one day wondering, where did all the years go, right? The other path, though, okay, the one that I want you to choose for yourself, that path leads to respect, trust, and love that actually lasts. Not because it's easy, it's really not. right? It's a harder path, but it's worth it at the end because it actually feels real. It's grounded because it's built on the man that you choose to become instead of the boy that you were forced to be. And the man your woman is waiting for, that man your future is waiting for, he's not the wounded version of you. He's not the man chasing validation or clinging in fear. He's the man who knows who he is and he refuses to settle for anything less. So, this is the moment of decision for you. You can stay comfortable in the familiar pain, or you can step into the unknown and finally lead your life. So, I'll ask you again, are you going to keep letting your wounds run your relationships? Or are you ready to build from identity and finally become the man you were always meant to be? If this landed with you, give me a thumbs up, leave a comment, and share it with a fellow brother that might need to hear it. Don't forget, subscribe and hit the bell icon so you're notified whenever I release a new video. I also have free resources below. I have free resources below that will help you start rebuilding from the inside out. These are tools that work, built for men just like you. And if you're interested in making a real lasting change for yourself, I do work with men just like you in a private one-on-one container. The application to work with me is in the description, and just know I don't work with everyone. I only work with men who are bold, willing, and seeking. And if you're still here watching this, that's you. So hit subscribe for yourself, grab the tools, and reach out. Give me a follow too on social media. Links are in the description. Remember, you're not broken, you're becoming. I'll see you on the next video. Stay strong, brother.